Here's a writing prompt for you. Night at the museum. You might have heard that word before, museum. You might have even visited the place. So that's why you may also know that a museum is a building containing objects of historical, scientific, cultural, and artistic significance. And these objects are ready for display and storage within the museum. On the left side here, I have the image of the Louvre, which is a museum in France. Today, we will be talking about the basic vocabulary one needs when writing about a museum. We need to work on the basic words. But before we get into that, I have some images here. On the right, you can see a building, and this is the Harappa Museum in Pakistan. And you might find that name very familiar because Harappa was one of the cities in the Indus civilization, and therefore this museum has a lot of objects and artifacts pertaining to the Indus civilization. And on the left side, I have a very interesting painting. This is done by a Pakistani artist, a renowned artist named Sadiq Khan, and he's very well known for his calligraphy as well as his murals. And you are bound to find a painting inside a museum. So while describing the painting are mostly included in museums which contain artistically significant objects, a painting should be described according to the colors being used by the artist, the message the artist is giving out, or just the size or shape of the material that the artist has made the painting on. So you can describe it in any way you want. So right here, the painting we have, you can see that the colors are more warm on the bottom than they are on the top. So he's used cool tones up here and warm tones down here. So when describing this painting, you could say that the saturation of warmth increased as I look at the cool blue of the sky to the flaming red of the robes down here of these men. And so you can really describe it in any way you want. That was just a very brief example. And something else that you might find inside one of these museums are artifacts. And these are particularly from the Indus Valley, which may be found in the Harappa Museum. As we can see, these clay figures are a distinct quality of artifacts discovered by archaeologists in the Indus Valley civilization, or what we presume is the place where the Indus Valley civilization existed. So when writing about things you're seeing in the museum, you also need to keep in mind the objects. So you might describe, these figurines, these different shapes, whether they could be used for everyday life by women or men, if they cooked with these clay pots, and if they really used these for, the domestic purpose, or they played with them, or they just use them as decoration. What you're really seeing needs to be translated by you through the words you use. And you can have any thought about what you see, and there could be, you can relate to it. You can remember something from your past which has a connection with what you're seeing in the museum. Maybe some some figure you see in the Harappa Museum. It's very similar to a toy you had when you were young. So you can make those connections if you like. And the thoughts running through your mind, as I have said, need to be translated into a creative piece. And now we move on to vocabulary, very, very important. So right here, I have the word museum curator. Who is a museum curator? Well, I have a very good example of a curator, and from that we will get a better understanding of what the person who has that responsibility of being a curator does. And Dr. Asma Ibrahim, she is a curator working in the State Bank Museum, and she's an archaeologist dedicated to preserving the historical and the scientific, cultural, and as I before mentioned, artistically significant objects present in Pakistan. And so she has, custody over those objects. She protects them and she is responsible for them. And that's why a museum curator is a keeper or custodian of a museum. So this is a very good example. Now we have the second word right here, exhibits. What is an exhibit? You could see right here, you can say that this is a part of a dinosaur exhibit. So we can see that this dinosaur skeleton is on display for people to see. And so this is a part of an exhibit, which means that exhibits themselves are objects on public display in a museum. So if you do go to a museum, you might see, an exhibit concerning the artifacts found in the Indus Valley civilization, or even of dinosaurs. Okay, historical characters. You might have read about them in books. We have, multiple figures throughout history, maybe philosophers, maybe rulers, maybe artists all over the world. And going a little more local, for Pakistan, we have many historical figures. Quaid-e-Azam founded Pakistan, so we know he was one of the leading people in the Muslim League who struggled for the creation of Pakistan. And so historical characters are famous people in history who had noticeably contributed to the past in order to make the world as we know it. So considering this example, we can say that if Quaid-e-Azam and the people involved in the Muslim League and the creation of Pakistan did not do what they did, then we probably might not even have had Pakistan. So that's why we give them significance. We give those people significance, and it's preferable that you talk about real life examples. But if you want to make something up from the figment of your imagination, if you want to create the characters totally with your imagination, then you're also free to do so. And if you want to go a little further back in time, then you can also talk about Razia Sultana. So she was the first female ruler in the Delhi Sultanate. And at that time, it was, taboo. It wasn't, really acceptable. So she is a very, very important figure in history who represents female strength. So that's another interesting topic to write about. Razia Sultana. Moving on, the last word we must know while writing a creative piece on, a night at the museum is archive. Archive, you might have also heard of, and it's a collection of historical documents or records providing information. So now we have digital archives. It's very different nowadays from the tradition we had before, in which we used to store the information physically. Now we have, books, songs, movies, articles. We have everything online. So it's not very surprising when we store all of that information online as well. It's actually easier.